Hey everyone, and welcome to Throne Talk. On today's episode, I'll be giving some more predictions on what I think characters like Mance, Littlefinger, Ramsay, and Stannis will be up to in Season 5. Some of my predictions will come from the most recent books, as well as some set leaks and casting announcements, so I'm issuing a big spoiler warning right now if you're not caught up, or you don't want to know what might be going down. So first off, the main cast for Season 5 has just been released on HBO.com, and the biggest news is the actor who played Jaqen H'ghar returning and being bumped up to main cast after only being listed as a guest actor in Season 2. Now what does this mean? Well, I'm now officially decided that he will play a version of the Kindly Man. The Kindly Man is a character from the 4th and 5th books that Arya meets at the headquarters of the Faceless Men in Braavos, and he eventually becomes a mentor to her as she begins her assassin training. But before he allows Arya to begin training, he gives her a test to prove that she is not afraid of death. All she has to do is kiss him, but when he lowers his black and white hood to reveal his face, only a yellow skull with a worm crawling in the eye socket remains. Without hesitation, she kisses the man and plucks the worm from his eye, and his face changes to that of the kindliest old man she'd ever seen, and her training begins. Now another bit of news we got this week was the release of the first 3 episode descriptions. In episode 3, there's a point about Arya seeing the many-faced god, so to me this definitely sounds like we'll be getting the scene I just described, but in an awesome turn of events, I think after she kisses the yellow skull, it will change to the face of Jaqen H'ghar. In the books, Jaqen never appears in Braavos, but instead a character with his last face shows up in Old Town, home to the headquarters of the Order of Maesters. I don't think we'll be seeing Jaqen visit Old Town though, because he's been bumped up to main cast, and the other main cast member that ends up there in the books wouldn't reach the city until the last few episodes of the season, plus why cast the same actor if he's just going to have a different face? The other casting news that stood out to me was the actor who plays Mance being downgraded from main cast member, which he had been listed as for the past 2 seasons. This is pretty big news in my opinion, because in the first trailer we saw someone being burned atop a fire, and this is more than likely Mance. In the books, however, while initially we are led to believe that Mance was burned alive, it's later revealed that Melisandre had performed a glamour spell on Mance and the wildling Rattleshirt to make them switch appearances, and thus Rattleshirt was the one who was burned alive while the real Mance lives on. After revealing her trip to Jon and seeing a disturbing vision in the flames, Mel sends Mance on an undercover mission to Winterfell to try and stop the atrocities of House Bolton. Now I could be way off, but I just don't think Mance will be visiting Winterfell on the show, because it seems a bit odd and kind of insulting to suddenly drop the actor from the main cast after the previous 2 seasons, especially if he has a part to play later on. Plus, in the first trailer, we clearly saw Rattleshirt at the Battle of Hardhome, which takes place near the end of this season, so this means if a switch had been made, the plot of Mance going to Winterfell is not happening anytime soon. So in my last video, I said I wasn't quite sure why Littlefinger was spotted on the King's Landing set earlier this year, but now I've got a working theory. So in Season 4, we saw Tywin arrange for Cersei and Loras to be wed, and even though it makes perfect political sense for both sides, Cersei has been desperately looking for a way out of the marriage ever since. Looking at this shot from the trailer, it seems like she's found what she's been looking for. So we can clearly see Loras Tyrell charging at the male prostitute Oliver in what looks like a trial being judged by the High Sparrow as Cersei and Tommen look on. Now here's where I think Littlefinger comes in. So Oliver, if you guys remember, is a prostitute and spy in Littlefinger's employ, who back in Season 3 seduced and bedded Loras on Petyr's command. The Faith of the Seven probably doesn't look too kindly upon homosexuality, so instructing Oliver to confess his deed and have Loras detained would be a great way for Petyr to further the discord between the Lannisters and Tyrells, while at the same time putting him on Cersei's good side and keeping her unsuspecting of his true dealings. I think this scene is going to happen within the first 3 episodes of the season, because Cersei is going to have her own dealings with the Faith, and Littlefinger won't have much time to visit King's Landing after this, because it's a pretty long journey from where we see him later on in the trailer. In episode 8 of last season, when the Hound identified himself to the Knight of the Gate outside the Eyrie, he also loudly announced that Arya Stark was with him as well. This also happened to be the last episode that Littlefinger was featured in, so we don't yet know how he'll react to this news, but my guess is it involves sending a group of knights to roam the lands and try and find Arya Stark. If Petyr really does go to King's Landing early on in the season, and he learns that Brienne of Tarth and Podrick Payne have been sent looking for the Stark girls, it's very reasonable that he would want them tracked down either to stop them from finding out about Sansa, since Podrick could easily recognize her, or just to learn more about Arya's possible whereabouts. Now, as we can see here in this close-up, the guys who have been chasing Brienne in the past 2 trailers appear to have the same getup as Men of the Vale. Last season established that Brienne and Pod were within 10 miles of the Bloody Gate in the season finale, and they probably would have guessed that both sisters could be at the Eyrie, so they seemingly decide to continue up the high road. None of this actually happens in the book, by the way. In fact, Arya and the Hound never reach the Bloody Gate because the road becomes impassable due to Snow and the Mountain clans, who are now brandishing steel weapons thanks to Tywin Lannister. Another interesting shot from the trailer is this one of Brienne and Pod in the snow. A lot of people think it means they're heading north, and this is definitely a possibility, but another theory is that they're still in the snow-capped mountains of the Vale. There's no sign of snow elsewhere in Westeros in the 2 trailers besides at Stannis' camp in the very north, plus who doesn't want to see the return of Shagga, son of Dolph? So one of my bold predictions for Season 5 was that Petyr and Sansa would be planning an attack on the Freys this season, but instead, it looks like they're going after the other major house involved in the Red Wedding, the Boltons. The Boltons arrived just outside of Winterfell at the end of last season, and in the new trailer we got the first real shot that clearly shows Baelish and Elaine at the former Stark Castle. Now, one of the scoops from EW's recent press release was that there will be 3 weddings this season. The most obvious one is the one we see in the trailer, Marjorie and Tommen. The second one will be Daenerys and Hizdahr Zolaric, and the last wedding will belong to Ramsay. In the books, Roose Bolton arranges for his son Ramsay to be wed to an innocent girl who's forced to pretend that she is Arya Stark in order to further cement the Boltons' claim to the north. This tortured girl is actually named Jane Poole, and was a friend of Sansa's that traveled to King's Landing with her and Ned at the beginning of the series, and later came into Littlefinger's possession after Ned and his men were betrayed. At Winterfell, Roose goes on to invite all of the Northern Lords and the Freys to Ramsay's wedding, but tensions quickly begin to rise in the castle, especially between the Freys and Manderleys of White Harbor. Lord Wyman Manderley's son had been killed in the Red Wedding, and ever since he's been secretly planning revenge against the Freys and Boltons for their disgusting treachery. With word of Arya's arrival at the Bloody Gate on the show possibly spreading throughout the land since last season, and with Jane's connection to Littlefinger in the books, it's possible that it's Baelish who actually offers up the match of a fake Arya, or some people have actually been suggesting that perhaps it could be Sansa who will marry Ramsay. I, however, don't think it will be Sansa because she maintains her charade as Elaine Stone throughout every single shot that she's been featured in, and it also doesn't make sense for the Boltons to marry the new heir to the north off to a bastard of the Vale. Instead, I'm leaning towards the idea of Ramsay's girlfriend from last season Miranda becoming this fake Arya, or even just introducing some random girl to play the part of Jane. I also think that Littlefinger is simply attending the wedding as an honored guest with his niece Elaine, but that the 2 of them could take on the vengeful role of the Manderleys. Whatever way it unfolds, it's definitely shaping up to be a season filled with scheming for Petyr, but one thing he might not have accounted for is the presence of Theon Greyjoy, aka Reek, at Winterfell. Theon instantly recognizes the fake Arya as an imposter in the books, and he would certainly recognize Sansa as he's known her almost her entire life. If Reek was ever to inform one of his masters about who Elaine really was, it would put a lot of people in danger and cause some awesome craziness that I'd love to see unfold on screen. The menace is coming. So this is probably the most tinfoily I'll get today, and while this could just be random placement of markers on a map, there's 2 things I find really interesting in this shot. We can clearly see Stannis' sigil and the Bolton sigil, then also these ships, which are probably Salador San's ships, but then there's these 3 markers right here in the shape of a sword piercing a gold coin. Now I searched around and couldn't find any sigils that look like this, so if you guys find one, please let me know in the comments. But I'm thinking the swords and coins might be a sign of sellswords. Davos spent most of his time off-screen last season trying to get various houses to join Stannis' cause, and when he just couldn't find the numbers they were looking for, he suggested to Stannis the notion of hiring sellswords. Stannis was against it at first, but I mean, he already has pirates fighting for him, and with only 4,000 men, he's vastly outnumbered by the other major houses, so I don't think he has many other options. The company that Davos suggests to Stannis is the Golden Company, and they're the largest and most reputable, and also happen to fly a banner featuring golden golden skulls, which isn't too far off from the golden coin. But the Golden Company goes on to play a really big role later on in the series, and this would be one of the biggest changes for the show to make. So maybe he's just hired a bunch of random sellswords, or maybe I'm just overanalyzing things. The second thing that caught my eye in this shot was the single flayed man sigil behind the Baratheon lines. Now there's two shots in the trailer that seem to match up with the idea of the Boltons launching a surprise raid on one of Stannis' camp. The first is this shot of a group of tents burning, and Stannis is the only person I can imagine who has set up these tents, but again let me know your comments below. We also got this shot of Queen Selyse on the ground in agony. Some people think she has just fallen in reaction to watching her daughter Shireen being sacrificed to the Lord of Light. This is pretty logical and something I predicted would happen, but I don't really understand why Selyse would react so passionately. From her conversation with Melisandre last season, Selyse knew exactly what was going to happen to Shireen, and the fact that she still agreed to bring her along to the wall means that she's accepted her daughter's fate a long time ago. Probably the least possible punishment for striking someone of royal blood is to lose a hand, so if Selyse was actually thrown to the ground, whoever's responsible must be pretty confident that they can get away with it, and also pretty crazy too. At the end of the 5th book, a letter sealed in pink wax and signed by Ramsay Bolton arrives at Castle Black and states that Stannis has been killed in battle, Mance Rayder has been captured, and that Selyse and Shireen must be handed over to him. This letter is pretty controversial in the fan community, especially as it pertains to who actually wrote it, but if it was Ramsay, it's possible the show might replace the sending of a letter with a personal visit from the Bastard of Bolton. A less crazy take, as one of you guys suggested to me, is that Selyse simply falls to the ground when reading the contents of the letter. That's all I got for you guys. Some of you have already been sending me your theories, which has been awesome, so keep commenting below, and as always, leave suggestions for future videos and hit subscribe for more Throne Talk.